Hello and welcome back to another EDH deck design video. Today I'm going to be showing an interesting deck. This is a rather odd one that I have in recent years not been able to play very much. This is my altered art deck, where the entire deck has eventually turned into an entire altar. Like every single card in the deck is alternate artwork, be it some proxy with a sticker on, or a legitimate card with overlays, or something like that. The deck started a long time ago when I wanted a playset of swords of X, Y, and Z, a Sword of Feast and Famine and whatnot. And when I got them, I just didn't want to spend the money for them. I got the 5 swords. They were thicker than a normal Magic card. And my initial goal there was just to get, since I was able to feel them coming up, I knew what was a sword and what wasn't. To fix that, I decided to get more of the same altered cards, so I couldn't tell what was a sword and what wasn't. The problem with that was that all the altered cards I got were just powerful cards, so I then was able to determine what was a powerful card coming up. By this time, the guy who I was having make these for me, or who I was buying them from, we were getting pretty close, and I was able to essentially create and fill in enough to create an entire deck. For the most part, I'm missing basic lands from that same creator, whoever manufactured these fakes for me. The deck started with Olivia. It was a black-red, it's always been a black-red deck, with her as a lead. When I decided to just make it as the full altar deck, I eventually coerced the guy making these to make me a Rakdos the Defiler, which was my preference. That was the general I wanted this to be. This was just the only one he had in stock. And recently, actually, I've had a completely different friend make me a Dragonlord Kolaghan altar, because these two are, she's really good, but is usually hated out fast. He's really good in 1v1, but there's not enough tech in the deck to focus on that. So I needed a generic general for multiplayer tables, and I was, essentially, we had a funny conversation regarding his potential in EDH, and it panned out to even having a generic haste enabler as a black-red general, like an Urbrask effect, was good enough to keep him in this deck, essentially. So a friend cut one of these out for me and made me a special one. This particular deck, he is not, I don't consider him being with this deck currently. I've actually listed this entire deck to sell on eBay as of late for a few reasons. I need money. This is also a deck I don't get to play. There are very expensive cards in this deck, as in the cards that these are representing. I'll get to them when I get there. Things like an Imperial Seal, a Grim Tutor, things like that, Badlands. A legitimate card is over $1,000, like a Badlands or Imperial Seal is $800 or something like that. Playing with those cards against my friends who cannot afford legitimate cards puts bad feelings. It is also confusing because some people with like sight issues recognize a card by the artwork, so an entire deck of altered art is another confusion. Reasons like that has made this deck not really a popular thing at most of my tables, so I've opted to sell it. The project's been done for a long time. It's just been sitting there collecting dust. Very rarely ever gets upgraded, very rarely gets played, so I'm going to post it and get rid of it. So per the deck I'm selling, these two are the generals. I'm saving for some other future project because a friend specifically made this for me. Granted, the guy who's making these made this artwork, but he lists this on his site. And most of the cards in here, no card was actually specifically made for me except for this guy right here. So let's set these two over here. I'll go through the creatures first. This is somewhere between Voltron and generic Rakdos creature control. So we have a Vampire Hex Mage. We have a Fulminator Mage. A Coffin Queen. One of the issues I had, if you're familiar with Magic altered cards, you know there's an over-sexualization of a lot of the cards. So some cards I've always wanted to directly replace. This is an example of an altar that I don't mind. This is an example of an altar that I would eventually want to replace or get a different card, simply because the artwork. My goal was not to have some like erotica deck. My goal was to have a functional, playable deck with beautiful cards. It is nice artwork, but that causes me some groans. Personal opinion, really. We have a Hippie. We have a Solemn Simulacrum. An Urbrask. This is an altar that I really wanted to keep because I love the artwork on this. We have a Thundermaw Hellkite and a Skittles. We have Drana, who actually just got reprinted as a new 3-mana costing haste legendary. I'm thinking about brewing around maybe another mono black deck, although that style of deck, I have a preference for Mary the Cursed, so I don't know if she would actually make it as the general. We do have a duplicate. We have a Worm Coil Engine. We have a pair of the... Oh, I thought there's a Titan here. Well, anyways, we have an Inferno Titan. I think, actually, the Grave Titan might have come out, because there's an equipment package in here, and he's better with equipment than Grave is. We have Coco, and a Massacre Worm. We have Sheoldred, and the Runescar Demon for tutorage. A Balefire Dragon, which is, again, really good with different equipment. And we have the Eldrazi Bros, Cozy, and Ulamog. This is another card I've been wanting to pull out before I sell the whole deck, because again, it is the legitimate artwork. It's just extended, and I really like this altar. Let's go on to the spells. This is kind of where you'll see some more of the more elaborate and expensive cards, things that I don't normally play with, but this is what I had to select from. Slaughter Pact and a Terminate. Really like the art on that one too. A Toxic Deluge. And these are all the board wipes. There's lots of creature removal in here. So we got a 3 mana board wipe, a 4 mana board wipe, a 7 mana, all colorful things are sacrificed, Decree of Pain, and the Overwhelming Forces, which is the Portals version of Decree of Pain. You can actually get a promo foil one of these for like $10 opposed to the like $90 normal Overwhelming Forces from Third Kingdom. Plague Wind, and a Blasphemous Act. We do also have a few tutors in here, the Vampiric, and the Imperial Seal is one of the $800 cards, a legitimate one that is. So having an altar of this is one of the cards that gives me grief in my playgroup. Literally running an $800 fake card. This altar is not worth $800, but the actual Imperial Seal is. That's the normal average price for an English printed one. We have a Demonic Tutor and a Grim Tutor, another typically very expensive card. Ironically enough, I am still running a wheel in this deck. This was I had a whole bunch of cards I had initially got from the guide to make this Reanimator. Wheel of Fortune was there to help me dump stuff in the graveyard, and it is probably one of the better draw spells in this deck. We do have a Reanimate left over, and a Rise of the Dark Realms as a possible win condition. And we have a Yawgwill, and an Exsanguinate as another alternate win condition. Let's go on to some non-artifact permanents. There's actually a nice chunk of walkers in here. As expected, we would run all the lilies, excluding the expensive lily. This one does have the same artwork as that Grim Tutor does, which is something that bugs me, but again, it's nothing I can actually get around to fixing. I do have a couple altar lilies. I've always tried to find non-sexualized ones. I love Stephen Argyle's artwork. It's just, yeah, it's finding something like that that's actually a pretty piece of artwork like this is very nice compared to, like, tits. We have my favorite Liliana, which is Lily of the Dark Realms. I know power level, this is exceptionally better than this, but preference, I like this card. And we have Liliana Vess. We do have a Chandra Pyromancer for some cards, and a Karn, which is a really funny looking altar. There are 2 enchantments in this deck. There's a Bitter Blossom. This was specifically in here to help get some extra permanents to sacrifice to Rakdos. In a typical Rakdos deck, by the way, this is not what you would see in that style of deck. A Rakdos, the Defiler deck, is typically a 1v1 control deck with lots of targeted hand disruption like Thoughtseize effects, and making sure that when you declare him, nothing bad is going to happen before he does damage. Then you also have double strike effects like Psychotic Fury, the new one being Timur Battle Rage. Things like that are what you would expect in this deck. This is kind of along the same line, since you're giving yourself more permanents to sacrifice. Past that, there is a Phyrexian Arena. Now, there is also a giant pile of artifacts. Again, this is Voltron based, so there's more equipment than anything. So we do have all 5 swords of X and Y. Sword of Fire and Ice, War and Peace, Feast and Famine, Body and Mind, and Light and Shadow. There's also a Batterskull, whatever. And there's a lot of mana stuff in here too. Again, a Mana Crypt is something that specific play groups will moan and groan about. A $150-ish mana rock that is essentially a secondary soul ring can make for some very broken starts. And if your play group can't afford, people in your groups cannot afford to invest $150 in a mana rock, then they will typically give you grief. And running a fake one, that's even worse. We do have Soul Ring, the one ring to rule them all. And we have a Coalition Relic, a Warren Power Stone with the Tesseract, and a Thrawn Dynamo, a Sensei's Top, Scroll Rack, and a Mind's Eye, and a Nivenrel's Disc. So that is all the non-land permanents in the deck. Let's go on to the lands. This is where I was having the hardest time collecting cards that were not like overly sexualized. The person who was making me all these other ones, the sticker type altar proxies, he never did basics. So this has been a chore to essentially scour any kind of sellers on Salvation and eBay, custom people making custom requests. So we have a lot of basics here. We have a Lily Swamp, another Lily Swamp, a Genderbender Soren Swamp, a Generic Swamp. And some of these are based off of the legit cards, like underneath. This is a legitimate card. I know it's got like a poxed kind of effect there, but that's just because the layer is sticky. It's kind of hard to show here. We have that's the vampire from whatever the flip one is from Dark Ascension. We have Songbird from Bioshock. We have another generic swamp. This is one I wish I could replace. It's just not enough altered swamps to go around. We have lots of fun little Joker and Harley references. And let's go into basics. There's a Harley's. We have a Chewbacca mountain. Another mountain I am tempted to replace. This is, I don't even know what this is from. It's just the borderline erotica here. This is not something I would prefer to have in here. Same thing. A Chandra mountain. Another mountain. This one was actually gifted to me. I should probably not be posting this. I know the seller on eBay. I've seen this one being sold before, but someone specifically got this for me for this deck. Being that I don't talk with them anymore, and we've had a bad falling out, this may go out with the deck anyways. Another generic mountain. And now we're on to the non-basics. We have a lot here. Again, these are all back to the sticker altar type, where they're proxied. A little bit thicker than the previous ones, but all the colorful ones. We got a Lava Claw and a Dragon Skull. A Carnarium is a little bit different, actually. This is another one of the sticker over the legit card. A Bloodstained Mire, Grave Cairns, Blood Crypt, Badlands. Yeah, this is, again, like the Grim Tutor and the Imperial Seal. The price on a Badlands is out of the range of most of my friends. So running a fake one, again, is something that puts bad feelings out on the table there. Command Tower, Cavern of Souls, which is stupidly jumped in price as of late. A Reflecting Pool, and now we're off the colorful lands. We have Coffers and an Urborg for stupid amounts of mana. We have an Inkmoth Nexus to help carry some swords. A Vesuva for that Cabal Coffers there. Rashadian Port, another land I love. I loved playing this in Standard, but the price on it is just retarded. Again, this is something that's really good 1v1. Usually what this means is you just hold up mana and port down people's lands before they untap, or before they go into their draw phase. Things like that, just to screw them over, kind of set them back. Or if you see 2 blue open at the end of their turn, you can port down one of them to hopefully reduce the chance of a counterspell. Things like that. Ancient Tomb for some extra mana. A Tower of the Magistrate to help essentially make people's equipment fall off. This is actually dropped in price as of late. You can get a legitimate one for about $3, which is really nice. Sack Land for some mana, Mutavault to help carry swords, Volrath Stronghold to help put some stuff on top of the deck, and a Maze of Ith. Technically this does not tap for mana unless I have Urborg out, but it's just a generically good card. So that is my altered artwork deck. This is not something I would suggest actively pursuing. I did this because I had straight up bought 5 Swords of X and Y. Then I straight up bought about 10 more cards to fill out the deck. And by then I had developed a relationship, like a social commonness with the person who is making the majority of this. And he helped me get a pretty good discount and unload some bulk and take some special requests like getting artwork. If you've seen some of my newer Jaleva or Jessica or Olivia videos, I have a lot of altars for the actual general I prefer. And most of them come from that guy. And the guy who made me this one made me the Bladewing altar, if you've seen that one. But yeah, these two are going to go. I'm going to hold on to Dragonlord here. I've been thinking about still doing that Grixis Dragonstorm deck, but since this card is ever so slightly thicker than a normal Magic card, I would not be able to include that, even though I do triple C my decks. It's the principle of the thing. I know it's different, so I would feel like I could tell, even if I can't. But yeah, altered art decks are super fun. I've been to quite a few different places near where I live, and further on Columbus, playing with different people, and I've seen a lot of altered art cards and tokens, and a lot of them just make me feel like the player's pervy. My goal with this deck was to make things not pervy, but as you saw, no matter how much I do that, there's always going to be some sexualization built into it. There's no way out of it. There's just not enough people making beautiful artwork, something specific to the card without adding tits on it. just to make a nice, breathtaking piece of artwork to go with that card. Some of these are beautiful. I love that this is a very nice artwork on the card, and it's fantastic that someone made that. But that gives a lot of negative attention. Also, the fact that I'm running fake mana vaults or mana crypts and Badlands and whatnot also makes this deck have a lot of bad attention. But yeah, if you have any ideas, there's no really way to improve this since I'm getting rid of this shortly. I'll probably post the eBay listing after it ends. I'm not going to use my channel to advertise my own sales. But I'm always open to comments and feedbacks. If you like this idea, I can recommend a few people. The best thing I would recommend doing is do your own research, because if you can make a relationship, become familiar with the person who's investing the time and effort into these, and get on good terms with them, they are usually there to make better deals with you, especially if you do bulk. If you give them the idea. One other altered art deck that I've wanted to do for a long time is an Alice in Wonderland themed deck with Exava, and my idea was to make a flip Exava. One side unleashed is just Alice Little. The second side with her unleashed form would be hysteric, like Alice in Hysteria mode if you've played the new Alice game. I already have the deck list created. I've already created all the ideal card candidates and card slots and even the flavor text. Just haven't had time to actually go and make these. I would probably prefer to make those myself, so I can call it completely mine. But yeah, this is my fake deck. Any ideas or comments, anything, always welcome. If you have any ideas for this guy, I would not probably actually use him as a general in a legitimate deck that's not jank or gimmick like this. But any ideas what you'd like me to do with this, I'd also be welcome to those opinions too. Thanks.